My name is Dr. Lucy King. I work with Save the Elephants out in Kenya, and I'm very honoured to be here to receive one of the Future for Nature Awards 2013. This is for my project working with elephants out in Kenya, trying to protect farmers from having crop raids and damaging crop raids, using my new method of beehive fences to protect their farms. Well, I was brought up in Africa. As a small child, we used to go around southern Africa with my parents, who were both teachers, and we used to spend a lot of time in national parks and reserves, looking at wildlife, camping in amongst it, and I felt very passionate from a young age about protecting wildlife, but also how do people live together, how do communities live with such large animals such as lions and elephants. So I've always had that as my interest, and I'm interested to learn how people can live better with wild animals. I don't like the idea of fencing animals off and just having them in national parks and that's all. I like the idea that we should be able to coexist better together. So that's always been my interest, and that's where my research has come from. Elephants are an incredibly important keystone species in national parks and reserves. If you can protect parks and wildlife corridors for elephants, many other animals are protected at the same time. So we often use elephants as what we call a flagship species. It doesn't mean the other animals are less important, but if we can protect those corridors, protect farmers, protect people living with wildlife through elephants, we can create a much more integrated network of communities and wildlife. And it also helps us to fundraise for whole areas because they're iconic species. People care about them, they're incredibly intelligent, their social lives. People are very empathetic with elephants. So it's a very special species to use in terms of enhancing general community conservation. In fact, one of my early heroes was Dr. Ian Douglas Hamilton, who I now work with. It was a great dream growing up, hearing about his stories, hearing about his research with elephants, mostly in Tanzania at the time. And I read all his books as a young person. And when my parents moved to Kenya, I had a chance to go and visit the areas where he did his research. And I really wanted to work with someone with such vision, and so I worked very hard to get onto a PhD program, and then approached him to see if I could work with their organisation. So I'm actually lucky enough to be working with my hero, and he's really inspiring. He's my mentor in the field, and I'm using all of his experience just to help me on my path, my conservation path. The dream for my project and for myself is to work more with increasing community conservation so that communities are benefiting from wildlife conservation. That is the ultimate dream for conservationists. We can't have all wildlife enclosed and protected parks anymore. It's just not possible. So that's the dream, is to try and get people living with wildlife, benefiting from them, but not in a utilization way. So not from skinning them or killing them or eating them, but from actually living with them and seeing the benefits, ecological, tourism benefits. So that's my dream, is to have a non-utilisation community conservation programme for Kenya, and hopefully more of Africa as well. My personal goal is to continue with working with conservation and making a lifestyle out of it, so that I can live comfortably and live with the people that we're working with in Kenya. I live half the time in the bush and half the time in Nairobi, where I keep my house. And it's a really wonderful thing to actually dedicate my personal life as well as my professional life to Kenya and to the wildlife that we're living with. And there's no such thing as a work and personal life in our world. We live and breathe elephants, we live and breathe conservation, and I hope I can continue like that, because it's a very rich life actually. It's wonderful. I heard about the Future for Nature Award through some colleagues in Kenya, and we agreed as a team that I should apply for it. For two main reasons. Firstly, because it's a very generous award which would help us buy a second project vehicle which would double our capacity in the field. And secondly, because it's in Europe, and it gives us a chance to tell European conservationists and members about our work, because I believe that protecting elephants is not just about being in Kenya and protecting them, it's actually a global problem now and a global initiative. So those two things together makes it a wonderful award to apply for, and I'm so honoured to have been chosen as one of the winners. And it's going to help our project work for the next 2-3 years, having this award. So it's a really wonderful day for us. So the Future for Nature Award prize, I'll be spending it on a new research vehicle for our project, which will literally double the capacity of our work out in Kenya and East Africa. And this is so special because the demands of our project has grown so much in the last 3 years, and our funding has been limited till now. So this is wonderful. We can reach more farmers, we can reach more people, And I'm so grateful for that support and for some salary money for our staff. It's really a huge boost to our project, and I hope to have a bigger project because of this award in 2 years' time. I think we're in a really difficult period for nature conservation in the world. This is becoming a huge problem for us, how to protect species and how to protect and look after communities. And I'm not pessimistic for the future, but I'm certainly concerned because the land that's being taken up by over-expanding populations with very little management is very worrying, particularly in Africa. The lack of land planning, the lack of zonation, the lack of protection of wildlife corridors is really an important critical issue. So I'm trying not to be pessimistic, but we have some major challenges ahead if we're to protect these important large species. And sometimes it's the smaller species such as frogs and insects which are getting ignored. But actually, when you protect elephants, you protect an entire ecosystem. So we're really trying to help enhance elephant conservation to increase corridor usage, protect it from overdevelopment, and try and stop this possible sixth extinction happening. So it's worrying times for nature, and I think the more young people who can get on board, the more young people we can engage, we might have hope for the future. But we have to all work hard now. We can't wait. We have to start now this year as much as we can. Otherwise we could lose what we have, and that would be a tragedy.